Hello, BookTube. How are you doing today? Coming to you today just to come and wrap up the month of March. Let you know what wound up going on. If this is the first time to your channel, my name is Al. This is Al's Reading and Writing. There's no arithmetic here. Place for me to come discuss books, discuss the writing that I'm doing, and to have a chance to chat with you about what's going on. Lunch is titled in part because of March of the Mammoths. And March wrapped up about a week ago. I'm a little bit late in filming this and uploading a couple videos that I've already filmed. So those should be coming soon. So this month, as I said earlier, I wound up finding about the challenge on March 1st, almost midnight, so almost March 2nd, as I was laying in bed. So found out about it and decided to join up. Pages were all books that were a bit dense. They're books that I had started and not made my way through, or books that I felt that there's no way I could wind up reading them in a month just because of the amount of time that would need to be devoted and the amount of attention. So I did a quick search and stumbled across Adam Levine's The Instructions. It was a book I hadn't heard of, a book that I dearly loved. I'll place a link for it. It should be, I think, right up here somewhere. Place a link for that in this video so that you can take a look at my thoughts on that. Also place a link to receive any money or anything if you buy something. Just a convenient place for you to go and see what the story is about. At any rate, so that was the first book I did. When March started, I was already halfway through a 30-day read through the Bible. I had just finished Song of Solomon. And so I decided, since I was doing that and keeping up that pace well, I would read through to the end, and rather than restarting, so I could finish the challenge that I had set for myself, would read through to the end and then read back through Song of Solomon again. And so I did that, starting with Isaiah, went all the way through, finished that first challenge in a little bit under 30 days, came back. Once I restarted in Genesis, I tried to keep the pace for the reading plan I was on rather than reading ahead, just so I could manage some of my other reading. Made it through the instructions in about, I think I finished it on the 20th, whatever that Wednesday was. Finished my read through of the Bible. I was reading the English Standard Version. Most of my reading was done online. My paper copy of that without any study notes in it or anything. With a fairly small text, is about 1,065 pages, I think. The instructions was 1,030 or 1,035. But I had 11 days left, and I figured, why not? Earlier in the month, I had thought about reading The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. When it got to that time, in fact, I had picked up a copy and started reading it alongside the others, and just determined that normally, even though I can read a number too much to bite off. But by the time, I think it was about a week later when I finished the instructions, took a look at The Brothers Karamazov and realized that it was just short of 800 pages. And even though, yes, it would have been book number 3, Mammoth number 3 for the month, and yes, it would have, my others were a little bit longer than that. In keeping with the spirit of the event, I wanted to make sure I hit that 800-word mark. So I took a last-minute shot, downloaded Paul Auster's copy, book 4321, and started off on that. That's 880 pages. I figured with 11 days left, that's 80 pages a day. Shouldn't have been too difficult. Now, granted, I was still reading the Bible every day through that time as well. So it's still a pretty significant page count every day. But it was something I felt I could manage. And it was something I could have managed. I came down to the weekend and had about 200 pages left, so I was staying pretty close to schedule. At the same time, I've got some mixed feelings about the book. I'm still very intrigued by the premise of the book. He follows 4 different paths that this person's life takes. That I thought was incredibly interesting. He starts off with kind of a family history, and then starts off with the boy as a young boy growing up and proceeds through it, at least college, where I've left off so far is right about 680. I think I'm a little bit shy of that. He's in college or college age in each of the lives. Um, we'll have to see how it turns out. I was very interested in the beginning, and there were things, even though it wasn't really a child's voice in any of the stories, seemed more like an adult voice. And adults' perceptions of the world around him. Um, hasn't really seemed to take very different paths. The lives all wind up, even though they go to different places, with the exception of one life, and I don't want to include any personality-wise, at least, the characters wind up very similar. Even though there have been events going on in the lives of the character that could be pretty major events that shift somebody's thinking around quite a bit. But in terms of worldview and political outlook and even kind of the desires, the character is pretty much the same, despite some pretty significant events in the character's lives. So really, it's the events that are different. And I guess if you were asking the question whether Paul Auster was an advocate of nurture or nature, you'd definitely say nature. But I found that to be very disappointing, especially later on. The writing also is, at times, obviously he's a very accomplished writer, but at times it's really bloated. And I found that to be more and more problematic as the story went on. I don't know if that was a case of less editing later on, if he was more careful with his or less editing later, if maybe I just didn't pick up on it. But as I was approaching those last 2 days, I think the challenge of trying to get it done, I certainly could have. Just didn't want to devote the time to sit and spend that much time reading. So I laid it aside. I hadn't picked it up again until I picked it up a little bit today. I was sitting in a restaurant by myself with nothing really to do, and so I picked up the book and started reading again. And like I said, I don't think that that I'll not finish it. I do intend to go through and finish, and probably relatively soon, keeping track of the different storylines. It is hard enough as it is. Creating distance there would make things pretty difficult. So anyhow, I'll come back to that. So I guess it was, I wound up accomplishing, felling 2 3/4 mammoths. One of them is still down and out for the count. He's going to wind up perishing. He's one that I've got to chase down for a bit, but we'll take it out as well. So that was my March. That was March of the Mammoths. I also frequently listen to audiobooks in my car as I drive and commute back and forth to work. So I had read or listened through Peter Klein's Destination Paradox, I believe was the name of the story. It was a fun story. I'll probably do a write-up on that as well. But we'll see how that goes. And I also started a new story, but I believe I started that in once we turn to April. So coming up this month, I've got a lot of things on the horizon. Not all those things are things I can talk about here. I'll be going through Camp NaNoWriMo, so you'll see me talking quite a bit about my writing this month. I'll be devoting more effort toward that than reading. That doesn't mean to Brothers Karamazov pretty soon. There are also some other books on my TBR that I'd really like to get to, not to mention finishing 4321. Which right now is my first priority in terms of reading. I'd take that back, not my first priority in terms of reading. Also wound up joining a beta read exchange, so during the month I'll be reading 3 different novels, one of which is more than 200,000 words. So this month I have a lot of reading going on, and those are the books that I'm not going to be able to tell you about because they're not my works. And, obviously for the authors, I need to keep that private. So at any rate, but maybe I'll have a chance to talk a little bit about the critique process and the beta reading process. It's something I've done a lot of over the years, and so that could help. Not to mention some talks on writing and tools and tricks that work for me. So at any rate, that's all I've got for you right now. I will be coming soon with a newbie tag for both BookTube and for AuthorTube. So stay tuned for that. And like I said, I'll have more coming up on some of the things that I've been reading and share those with you. So there's a lot more I could say about this book, but I think I'll go ahead and wrap it up there. If you've got anything you'd like to talk about regarding the instructions, go ahead and put it in the comments below. Otherwise, go ahead and like, subscribe if you want notifications when I'm putting out new videos. Put the bell on. We'll see you next time, BookTube.